Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 25, which is part 2 of my interview with the Mayor of Kitchener, Barry Vrbanovic. This time around, we're going to talk about a few different things. So, the reduction in funding for permits for youth organizations. What does he think about that? Regional Council review is well underway. What does he see happening so far? Safe consumption sites. Are we going to see some of the social programs that are in Kitchener and Cambridge more spread out across the region to service everybody? How would he sell his city to others? And we're going to find out if his prediction for the Raptors was correct. Without further ado, here's Barry.
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit different direction. So, and I know that in this situation, your level of government is more taking the direction from the province. But I know that, so as you may or may not know, I'm director of a volleyball club, a youth volleyball club here in Kitchener, Kitchener-Waterloo, and we're not for profit. And there has been, and again, I believe it's a Trillium grant, I might be wrong, but there was a grant whereby the permits that we do get are heavily subsidized. And that, I believe they're meeting this week, both the school boards, to figure out how they're going to manage the reduction or elimination of that subsidy. So my question to you is, and I'm a parent, right? So I got 2 kids. For our club, we're going to have to increase fees. It's just going to be that simple once we find out what happens. And there will be some kids who just won't be able to afford it. And as much as, we want to be reasonable, we also have to pay, right? We have to pay our fees. So some of these kids may end up in the mall now again. So what are your thoughts on this? What do you see happening? What are you hearing? Give me your thoughts on it.
So this isn't something, to be honest, I've heard a lot about yet, but it certainly fits in with some of the kinds of cuts we're seeing in a variety of areas. Listen, we all know that this provincial government was elected partially on a mandate to rein some things in, as some people saw it from a financial point of view. Unlike the provincial or federal governments, cities always have to have a balanced budget. We don't have the ability to run deficits, and that has happened, provincially and federally, sometimes for good reason, because they were important investments that needed to happen. But at the end of the day, I mean, you need to balance your books, and so, I think as the province looks to do that, they're making some choices. Anytime you start having to make choices about things, there are those who are going to agree and those who are potentially going to disagree with some of them. I will say to you that when it comes to youth and activities, that is an area that, certainly from a city perspective, when on the portions the city's responsible for, we've always prioritized, because we know for every dollar we invest in young people at the front end, we save the system $7 in the back end. So if we want to save money in terms of healthcare, in terms of the criminal justice system, in terms of prisons, and the list goes on and on and on. Yeah. Those are the realities. Those numbers have been proven by people far smarter than me, and so we've always been reluctant to make cuts in those areas. The previous government had made a decision to open up schools for youth programming and to make it available, and they've kept school boards whole in terms of any additional costs that they've had. My understanding is, and I don't know the details either yet, that there is going to be some potential cutback to this. And if there is, yes, groups like yours are going to have those challenges. So, I would certainly urge groups like yours and parents of young people involved in activities and sports that are potentially going to be impacted. Contact your local MPPs. Let them know how you feel about this. Let them know how, while you understand the books need to be balanced, that these are areas that are important, and quite frankly, we shouldn't be cutting in. There's probably others that we could add on to the list that, aren't being looked at.
Yeah, that's very true. And you know what? It might be an easy one for them to do, but to your point, the domino effect of issues, right, is just, it's not good. And listen, I'm right there. I'm at the front line with the club, so
Yep.
maybe I have a different view on it. But when we got all these issues with youth and finding places for them to do stuff, get them off their screens. I know schools have they've cut back on phys ed and stuff like that. I mean, good God, I remember one year in high school I took 3 phys ed courses. I mean, it was just, I just wanted to do it. It was a lot of fun, and here I am giving back, right? So it's a tough domino. I like that though too. Contact your MPP.
Yep.
Let them know this is what's going down, right? So, so there's the regional council review.
Yes.
So, what's going on there? What do you see happening? Ken Sealing's running it, so he obviously knows how the ship runs. What's the latest on what's going to happen?
So, I think it's important to sort of reflect on a variety of things. I mean, first and foremost, initiating this review of two-tier structures was not something that we in Waterloo Region asked for, or in fact, most others across the province asked for. The other thing I will say, in that, having had the benefit for almost 20 years now of working with local governments across the country with my work with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, I will tell you that not just Kitchener, but all of the municipalities in Waterloo Region, within our existing two-tier structure, are some of the best run municipalities in the country. And the level of collaboration, when we talk about the level of collaboration with the business world, when we're trying to attract them to this region, this isn't just another saying or some shtick that we use to try to promote the area. The reality is the level of collaboration that happens here is second to none. So, people often ask, well, what does that mean in terms of, the regional review? Well, I always welcome the opportunity to have the kind of dialogue that the province has initiated. I think it's an opportunity for us to look at some of our services in particular and see, are there some things we can, use this opportunity to take to the next level in terms of collaboration and so on. Does that need to mean amalgamation? I don't believe it needs to mean that. I mean, we've polled Kitchener residents, and Kitchener residents have said, that they don't see that as being a priority. Focusing on services is a priority. We do share a number of services already together. In fact, Kitchener-Waterloo actually have over 60 shared services between our two communities. One of the most recent ones is fire. So fire often gets, touted as an example. Well, if we amalgamated, we would save all this money because we wouldn't have 7 fire chiefs anymore. Well, hold on here for a second, because if you amalgamate 3 full-time services and 4 volunteer services, the reality is people in the urban areas of Elmira and of St. Jacobs and of Breslau are all of a sudden going to start saying, well, why am I paying for this and not getting the same level of full-time service and response time that my urban friends are getting? And so all of a sudden you have scope creep, and with that comes the additional cost of those full-time services. And so, your savings of 6 fire chiefs, or that, probably not 6, because you're now going to need an extra level of senior administration or whatever, coupled with this additional level of service, actually ends up costing you more.
And that's a key point there. So if it's working great, is it a lot more expensive though? And what I'm hearing is it's probably going to be more expensive to do it the other way.
In many
right?
instances,
So,
it is.
yeah.
And so, one of the areas, what we have done locally, though, is we've looked at places where we can collaborate. So we were in a situation where the City of Kitchener provided fire dispatch services for the City of Waterloo, Wilmot, Woolwich, and Wellesley Township. Cambridge and North Dumfries did their own. We actually, earlier this year, combined it, and we now have one dispatch service for the entire region. So an area of that overall service where we could save some money, we have. Everyone benefited, and without the pressure of additional costs, for example, of going full time. Similarly, with the region, we share our 24/7, the space for our 24/7 call center in the City of Kitchener operations facility down on Goodrich Drive. And so the deal that we have with the region is we'll provide you the space in our building next to our call center. You provide us access to the software package that sort of runs the system, behind the scenes, and so that's what we've done there. And again, being able to combine those things.
It's better if you jump before you're pushed. You know what I mean? It sounds like that's what you guys are doing. You're being a little more proactive.
Exactly,
on it,
and
right?
so there's a number of areas where I think we can look: bylaw enforcement, road maintenance, and so on, where I think we can go more. In some instances, that may mean saying, okay, you know what, this service makes more sense exclusively at the region. In some instances, and bylaw is one of them, I would argue that, quite frankly, it would make more sense because the regional scope of bylaw is quite limited. Bring it to the municipalities, get the region out of that business, and let us deal with it because we deal with 90% of it already.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It makes complete sense, and I like that you're on top of it. You're looking at it, and because again, you'd rather do it on your own instead of them saying you have to do it. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, Stephen, we don't know where the province is going to go with this. We've certainly, shared with them the results of the Kitchener Statistically Significant Survey. I've met with Ken and Mike Fenn and shared my views. I've met with the minister as recently as a few weeks ago, and shared our position on a number of these items. At the end of the day, they will make whatever decision they make. And my job as an elected leader in the community will be to make this work. Whatever direction they go in, and make it work as effectively as possible.
Perfect. Safe consumption sites.
Yes.
So, my history. I used to be a branch manager for another blue bank in downtown, and I know Kitchener in particular has a lot of the social programs from the region. They're in Kitchener, Cambridge. Two questions. Safe consumption sites. I believe you're in favor of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a good idea. Do you ever think that we'll see some of the social programs, including safe consumption sites, spread out across the region so there's better accessibility for everybody?
So I would say to you, that's where we need to be. Historically, Kitchener was has always been and continues to be the largest urban center in the region. We represent 250,000 of the 600,000 in the region. And so, with that being and we have to look at ourselves in the context of being a region of 600,000, with that comes some of the challenges that comes with being in a larger community, whether, we're one or whether we're seven. I think there's been steps taken over time to try to move some of these things and spread them out. So, for example, when Health and Social Services needed a new building, that facility was built up in Waterloo. There is a service delivery point in Cambridge. I think there's more work that can be done, particularly in the area of affordable housing and so on, in terms of spreading some of that around. I will say that I've always been incredibly proud of our community, that we've stood up and said, we need to. And it hasn't always been easy, but set up, we need to do the right thing for everyone in our community. but I also firmly believe that everyone needs to step up. And so, part of the contention has been on the safe consumption site issue is, why is there one not going in Cambridge? And as you know, the Cambridge community has really been struggling with this issue. Part of their struggles, I think, come from the fact that they don't have the same foundation of social services that we do. So the situation has developed in a different way there. But to be frank, while the overall numbers, simply by virtue of population, are highest in Kitchener in terms of overdoses, on a per capita basis, they're about 30% higher in Cambridge in reality.
And that's really a number you got to look at, right?
No, for sure. And so, one of my messages to my colleagues in Cambridge has been, it hasn't always been easy, and I go back to the crack house days in the 80s and different things, but we've always tackled these issues head on. We've had the difficult conversations, and as a community, even in this SCS debate, I mean, there was some debate around where it should be located, but there was really, there's some who are opposed. I'm not naive to say that there aren't, but there was really no significant debate like there is in Cambridge about whether they should exist at all. And, it's certainly been a learning curve for me and on this issue.
It's a tough one.
It absolutely is. But you know what? You listen to, you sit down with some of these families, you listen to some of these stories, and the reality is that these are this isn't just some drug addict who had a rough life and made lots of bad choices. I mean, these are people who are sons, daughters, grandkids, brothers, sisters, children, of doctors, of lawyers, that come from, well-to-do families and have somehow ended up on this path and need help to get out of it.
Hard to do it without judgment. I think that's, as I hear you talk, it's hard to make these decisions without having judgment involved.
For sure, it is, but we need to take that lens out. We need to take the fear factor out for people, and remind people, just like we are treating cancer, or just like we're treating numerous other diseases. There's a variety of treatment mechanisms that need to be put in place for different people, depending on where they are on, with the disease and so on. And the same thing happens. I mean, safe consumption sites are not the answer for everyone. Addiction treatment facilities are not the answer for everyone at a particular, in all of these instances, when I say that, I mean at a particular point in time. But we need that full toolbox of options available so we can catch people where we can, help them when we can, and ideally get them back to a point where they can lead them a meaningful and fulfilled life. And there are people who have made those transitions, and like I said, over the course of this discussion, we heard from a number of people with lived experience, and it's powerful to hear those stories. The challenge in the meantime, because the scope of the problem nationally has grown so much more significant, the strength of some of these drugs and so on is so much more. We're seeing behaviors that are more intense, and so that is creating some fear amongst people. It doesn't matter which city you're talking about, and trying to manage that, work with our police partners, work with our health services partners, and quite frankly, deal with the fact that both in mental health and addictions, we are under-resourced from successive provincial governments. This isn't this government, this isn't the last, this goes back 30 years, and we're, as a society, dealing with those problems. And at some point, quite frankly, this needs to become a priority because it's costing all of us way too much.
It's a domino effect again, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Brian Santos, president of the Kitchener-Waterloo Association of Realtors, has this question. If you could picture yourself as a realtor, first of all, can you do that?
Sure,
All right,
absolutely.
let's should ask that question first. how would you pitch your city?
I've heard this question before.
Was it from Brian?
It was from the moderator this morning.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
No
yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I gotta.
Yes.
I gotta find out from Brian if he like stole my thunder here. All right. Well, that's
he asked
okay.
all of us that, and I will say to you, I won't just pitch Kitchener, but I will pitch the communities of Waterloo region, since I know your listenership comes from throughout the region, and I think our communities have some of the best quality of life of municipalities in Canada, available right here in Waterloo region. If you think about it, you've got choice in terms of the urban rural mix. You can choose to work in the city and you're 20 minutes away from your hobby farm in the country, or vice versa. You could be out on a farm, but say, you know what, at the end of the day, I want to live in one of our urban cores and live the urban lifestyle. I think of Green Acres as in the old TV show that you and I would remember. Some of your younger
I've never heard
audience.
of it before. I don't know what you're talking about.
But my point being is that we have those choices. We have incredible amenities in terms of the Grand River, as an example, and one of Canada's heritage rivers. And more, all three cities and our rural areas are using it as an amenity. Cambridge, kudos to them, has really done very well in that regards. We have three of the finest post-secondary education institutions in the country, right here in Waterloo region. We have performing arts centers like the Center in the Square in Kitchener, and in other ones in Cambridge and Waterloo that add to the quality of life. We have the auditorium that brings large concerts in junior A hockey and Canadian basketball, which hopefully our Titans will get a boost from the Raptors, the Raptors rather. Over the next season. So you put all those things together and you're going like, what an incredible place to live. And the added bonus is, I was going to say only an hour, but only a couple hour drive away from Canada's largest city and everything it has to offer. And yet you can come home at the end of the night or stay down there if, when you want that staycation. Locally, we have ski hills here with Chicopee, but if you want a little more adventure, you just drive up to Blue Mountain, and again, it's only 2 hours away. All the lakes around here for summer cottage life. I mean, we're just
You're an hour away
fortunate.
from everything.
Yeah.
I used to be the assistant coach with the women's volleyball team at University of Waterloo, and we used to recruit that way and say you're an hour from everything.
Yep.
Even our league games, you're an hour from every other school. You're an hour from Toronto. You can recruit from wherever, right? So. Yeah, it definitely has its advantages.
And we have, all 4 seasons, unlike a place like, people say Vancouver, they got the ocean, they got the mountains, but they don't really have all 4 seasons in Vancouver, right? We do. Now, as I get older, I'm kind of going, okay, maybe that's not that positive anymore. But
if I get one more January picture from my father-in-law in BC of this beautiful ocean and him I'm going to scream, but yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, and this might be the most important one of the whole conversation. How do you see the end of the Raptors series going? They're up 3-2, going back to Oakland. What do you see happening? And it's being recorded, so this is coming out after it all happens, Barry, so you got to really think about this one.
So, I was pretty sure we were going to win the other night.
I think everybody was.
I mein, it went right to the bitter end, and it was so close. I think they had the advantage during the first part of the game. The Warriors did of their star player, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like he'll be back. And so I'm predicting we're going to win. I would have loved to see a win at home, but to be honest, I'll take the win on Warrior territory because I don't think my heart can take Game 7. I think we're going to have all sorts of run-ons our cardiac care facilities.
Oh, I think so.
If we go to Game 7.
All right, so you're saying Raptors in 6.
Raptors in 6.
We're done. All right, I like it. You know what? I'm with you too. as long as they let Kawhi's got to take that last shot. I don't know if you watched the last game, but Kawhi's got to take that last shot. I don't want to make this into a Raptors show all of a sudden, but yeah.
And no last minute unwarranted timeouts either.
Yeah, well, yeah, that. I was watching some of the videos on that, and yeah, he took up. But you know what? Kawhi said one thing. He said, "We're not having this conversation if we made that last shot." And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I get what you're saying too. So, Barry, it's been awesome having you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. If people want to reach out to you, I know your office was great with me getting back to me. I know they can reach you through the website, email, phone. Yep. You got a great assistant. Her name again was
Sarah.
Sarah
Yeah, in my office.
She was
fantastic.
emailing me at weird hours. So yeah, she was fantastic.
Any of our staff is great. But yeah, if you need to email me, it's BarryV, BRYV at Kitchener.ca. Or if you forget that, mayor at Kitchener.ca. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Barry Online, as well as Facebook. So any of those things are great ways to stay in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thanks. A real pleasure joining you.
And there you go, Barry Vrbanovic, Mayor, City of Kitchener. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to follow me on both Facebook and Twitter. Handles RBC Stephen Green, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.